just got a couple slides to go through. So first and foremost, welcome to the last week of the cohort, Discuss Your Learning. We are going to be talking to two of our groups from the cohort, and we're really looking forward to doing that. Don't forget, April 27th, a week from today, we have our xAPI party. We have our selections made, and we will be coming out with that program. And you will be receiving the login links closer to the time. So make sure you register. I'm going to drop a link in chat. Register for the party so that you can see some of the great projects. And then if you're not a Learning Guild member, please join us, because there's so much out there for you on the Learning Guild site. And it's all free. And then we have a lot of things that require a little bit of money for your subscriptions, but they're well worth it. And yes, I'm biased. And with that, I am going to turn things over to Mark Britz, who is going to lead our session this week.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, Kelly. I should say hello again, actually.
Hi there. Hi, Mark.
We're letting people roll into the meeting right now. It's just started to kick off. So I like to give everybody 1 or 2, 3 minutes to kind of roll in, just to give a little bit of format as people come in. Today, of course, we have 2 project teams that are going to be kind of showcasing a little bit. A carryover from last week is where we're really going to begin. I think that's the ChatGPT team, which Kelly is a part of. And Kelly, I assume we're going to have a few other of your team members join us on stage.
Yeah, I see we've got Doug, and I think Evan will be joining us too.
Okay.
Is Anya? I've invited Anya as well.
Okay, yeah, if she wants to.
And then, so we're going to kick off with you guys in just a couple minutes, because I think last week you had an opportunity. I wasn't here. I was at Learning Solutions, by the way. You had an opportunity last week to kind of showcase some of the work. And we're going to get into a little bit of the questions and learn a little bit about the team, your decision-making process, and have an opportunity to see what you learned through the process, what you created with each other along the way. And then we'll move into Team Rise. So I'm looking at maybe, we'll take the first 15 minutes and then we'll move over to Team Rise and give them the back half of our session today to do just the same, to kind of showcase what they have and answer some of the questions I think probably the community at large is very curious about. So, all right.
Good.
Let's see. Karen's backed off. Doug. Hi, Doug. Oh, I lost Doug.
I'm trying to set up a background. I had it set, and then I log in and all my stuff resets. There we go. There's our chat souffle icon.
There it is.
We generated that with the DALL-E AI. Yes.
I got a rejection from Sam.
Oh.
He thought it was a mistake. You can reinvite him.
Okay,
if you want.
and
we
Evan,
can jump into Q&A too. I know we're short on time, and we don't want to gobble up too much of.
Right, and Evan, I'm waiting your response. So if you're there, please accept, or else I'm going to move back over to Sam.
All right, we'll give 1 more minute here. It's only 2 minutes past the top of the hour, so we got a little time. We're fine. So Kelly, I'm going to assume before we kind of roll into it, you're going to be kind of our spokesperson today for your group?
Yeah, I think it was going to be kind of me and Evan, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so while Karen is working the back space to bring some of your other team members aboard, I'd like to kind of dig into it a little bit about who you guys are. So, a little bit about your background, the work that you do aside from the effort around xAPI that probably led you to this conversation. So Kelly, would you kind of kick us off, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So most recently, I managed a team of instructional designers at Zendesk, and I was working in customer education. So our learner audience was not, an internal one. It wasn't L&D per se, but just all of the customers who use Zendesk as a product for their customer support. And before that, without getting too into the details, I've had just a very a varied career across a lot of instructional design kind of roles. And I'm really big on measurement and wanting to measure the impact in whatever role I am. So I've always kind of had my eye on xAPI and wanting to learn more about it for that potential it has to just measure a lot more than SCORM and other traditional things. So yeah, that was what first got me interested in it. Also seeing some of the people who were starting up this particular team. I know Doug kind of in person in the Bay Area, Evan later joined. So it was just additionally fun to kind of work with the people that I know. It'd be great to work with. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's great to tell a little bit and you led right into why you're here, right? The measurement aspect of it was intriguing to you, and I hope the cohort's been fruitful for you.
Yeah, for sure. It has been.
I'm going to move on to Doug real quick. Doug, same question for you. What is it that you do, and what kind of drew you to the work in xAPI in this cohort?
I'm a technical project manager. I've built a lot of SaaS apps and stuff like that. I want to get into learning, and xAPI is an awesome tool that I think more developers need to learn about. I talked last week about myself professionally. So outside of xAPI, I am on a whaleboat rowing team, and I'm on the bay in San Francisco, rowing under the Bay Bridge, racing, and I'm getting a coxswain certification as well. So that's cool. A little bit about me.
Excellent. Nice job. Yep. Well, Evan, we have time. Let's keep rolling through the rest of the team that's present real quick. Evan, what do you do, and what brought you to this cohort and the work that you did with this team?
Yeah, well, like a lot of folks right now, what I do is job search. But bigger picture, I've been in customer education for software for about 10 years, which is great. I love building customer-centric learning programs. And that's really what attracted me to this program is, going beyond a lot of the traditional tools and, being able to interact at a much, not just deeper level, but more automated level with learners. To be able to get more feedback, guide them to whatever it is that's going to help them the most. So yeah, it was great to just kind of jump in, not really knowing what I would get out of this, and just kind of go with the flow. So it's been great.
Very good, very good. And Sam
Rogers of Snap Synapse. I've been in learning and development for over 20 years now, and for a time was a frequent speaker at the Learning Guild events. Yeah, happy to see you, Mark. And
me too,
it's been a minute since pandemics and such. But this is my third xAPI cohort, and I kind of breezed in late in the game and got in on all of the great work that this team has been doing. To be able to look at measurement aspects specifically was what I was interested in, but also just because the theme is about assessments and making assessment quality greater, being able to take human plus machine and put that together to be more than the sum of the parts and creating strong, well-formed assessment content. And plus to get to geek out on xAPI kind of stuff, I've been in the background of since the tin can SCORM was a tin can announcement in like 10 years ago now at the MLearn conference. And it's great to see how much it's really picking up steam. So good time to dip the toe back in the water.
Excellent. Great you to be a part of it all. So I'm going to circle back around. I mean, I wasn't here last week, so I missed the display of your effort. But one of the questions we like to dig into, and if you've answered this to some extent, then you can elaborate a little bit deeper into it. I'm very curious, as probably the attendees are as well, as what was the overall the scope of the work that you did? And I'm very curious to know of how you got started, what was the catalyst for your effort, and then kind of where did it take you in the project, and ideally getting to a point of the usefulness of this. My two guest hosts, I think, are Kelly and is it Evan or Doug? I can't remember which one you said, Kelly, but if one of you wants to lead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start to answer that, and guys, please fill in, whatever you think is missing. But yeah, I think it really started for us with just wanting to play around with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily start with like a learning problem that we were trying to solve, more of a technical tool we wanted to play with, which is obviously kind of a hot thing right now. And so that's where it started. But then from there, I think that we went into a space of, well, how are IDs going to use ChatGPT? What are the limitations? What are the opportunities? And we hit on obviously like how would it help you develop a course, and we kind of kept narrowing that to, well, let's just focus on how would it help you do an assessment. That, of course, is still a huge topic area. So we narrowed that even more to just focus on the distractors, AKA wrong answers. And then once we kind of landed on that as a topic, brainstormed a lot of different ways to go about that, and came up with what someone nicely described as a kind of Socratic, I think, experience, a very interactive one, to just really guide someone through experimenting with ChatGPT on their own. So that's kind of how our scope developed. Anything else y'all would add?
Sounds about right. Well put.
All right. That was quite comprehensive, so I appreciate that. One of the things too is we have to remember not everybody who was in the cohort formed a project team, right? And engaged in these activities. And again, this is all virtual, and we're giving you the space to do this. And there's the prompt in the community, and everybody comes at it from a different level of knowledge and experience. So I'm kind of curious, because I think it's a lesson for everybody who's attending and will be able to watch this video, is if one of you could share a little bit about how your team came together, and how did you, basically lay out how you're going to get the work done together and separately to kind of build this project over time.
I can take this one. It was definitely very different from a project that you might do at work, where you start with a clear objective and then you start saying, oh, let's figure out how to do this. In this case, I think all of us had a shared interest in discovering something new. And so we started by just sort of like lumping together ideas around what are things that we find interesting that might be a fun sort of like sandbox to play in, and then just bounce those ideas around until we were like, okay, how can we sort of mash these into something that will let us produce something that is interesting for us to try, hopefully will be interesting to share with others. So it felt like pretty late in the length of the time of the cohort before we actually got down to producing stuff. But I wouldn't change the process at all. I think that's taking that time to talk through, again, what are things that are interesting. And by things, obviously ChatGPT, but not, there's a lot more to it than just saying the name. It's what can you do with it? What is it good at? There's a couple weeks there where we were just kind of messing around in there so that we could educate ourselves on what on earth it can do and where its limitations are. What might you want to use it for in a learning context? Early on, Kelly had suggested, using the Twine tool. She messed with it some, was curious to learn more. So we're like, cool, let's add that onto the metaphorical whiteboard of keywords and see how we can come up with a project that fits to that. So, that, and then, I think what that resulted in is our team everyone on the team having something or multiple things about the project that were really interesting to them, where we could each sort of contribute our own bit while also observing and learning from the others.
Was there any, in terms of where you guys are located and getting together and how you built the schedule and any of that, were there any major hiccups, or you guys worked that out pretty early and were able to meet on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, three of us happened to be very close, but that was sort of just random chance. Early on, we set up just weekly Zoom meets to kind of get on the same page, but really did most of it asynchronously, just over Slack and Google Docs, and would sort of call meetings when we thought we needed them. It worked out to roughly once a week to kind of talk through stuff. But once things were underway, we didn't have to meet, I think, quite as often in person.
Okay. And how large was the group altogether? There's 4 of you here, but was there more?
Yeah, Anya, I think, wasn't able to join today. So I would say that 5 of us that have been through most of it, but we definitely had a couple folks earlier on. And I'm blanking on their names right now. I apologize, but they were, if you go back and look through the team Slack channel, they provided some really good, helpful context early on. People that had either worked with xAPI and or been in the cohort before and could sort of give us some context around, what to expect and tips on what they've seen make teams successful. And that was super valuable as we were kind of finding our feet. And then, every now and then someone will pop into the Slack channel and ask a question. And we've had a couple people, jump into single team calls, and it's always good having another perspective. I think Renee, who's on the other team, I think presenting today, gave us some super in-depth feedback earlier this week that was great. So I think it's to your point, Mark, like not everyone joins a team, and that's fine. But I love this sort of lurkability of this, where you could sort of dip your toes in as much or as little. Yeah, it's been good.
That's good. I want to ask this question of you. It's kind of like wrapping things up a little bit. But, obviously, I think, you've answered a few of my questions in this. What were some of the, the hurdles and things you've kind of worked through, and your process of coming to the decision of what you're going to work and how you brought all those pieces in. But the big question, I guess, for all 4 of you who are here is, where do you take this now? Individually, do you find an opportunity to stay connected? Is there aspects of the project that you say, I gained this understanding, this learning, and I'm going to apply it over here? Does anybody want to tackle that one?
Yeah, Doug, do you want to give your pitch? I think is best on those plans.
Well, there's a few components here. First of all, like I said in chat, Twine is free and open source. I believe, as an outsider looking in on this instructional design and learning development community, that we need more free tools and more democratic tools, and Twine is one of them. So we want to take this and bootstrap this whole thing so other people can grab it, enter their LRS password and authentication stuff, use some short codes, and have xAPI running in whatever Twine game they want. That's the longer term goal. Mm-hmm. The shorter term goal in the interim is, we worked our butt off on this. There are 181 commits in our GitHub repository. There are 153 deployments. The app is 32 pages collecting statements. We have collected 3,200 xAPI statements in our production LRS. We have 11K test statements in our test LRS. We're going to continue this project. We're going to continue collecting data, hopefully from the learning design community, because we want to learn how everybody feels about this tool. This is a time of disruption, and I think collecting the input from everybody in the learning design community is really important. And the ultimate output of this is to get data, and Sam is creating amazing dashboards, and we're already getting really robust data. And we want to turn this into a white paper to share with the community. We have this wonderful, awesome community in the Learning Guild. There's 6,000 people in the main channel. We have this great sample size to collect from. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage everybody to not look at this as Team ChatGPT's project, but to look at this as the Learning Guild's project, the community's project. And this is about community and learning, how we all feel about it, and practicing and learning together. So I'd encourage everyone to take a peek at ChatGPT if you haven't, because your contributions will help the overall community, hopefully. That's my pitch.
Very good. Anybody else want to add any thoughts to where you head off to now with this project wrapped up?
I would also say, similar to folks like Sam that clearly have been coming back, just knowing that it's here. It doesn't have to be a formal course. Just knowing that there's a community here to come and check in on is great. So
perfect. Well, I thank you all for your contribution and sharing last week and again today to kind of pull this all together. I want to make sure we have ample time for our next group to share some of their work and answer similar questions. For you 4 and anybody else who was a part of it, the chat is obviously active right now, so I ask you to look over there and see if any questions are directed to you. But thank you all. Thank you all for sharing. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Karen, if you're still with us, I would love for your assistance in finding and bringing and elevating Renee and Leah to the stage. She might not be here. Oh, there we go.
I'm here. I have found Renee and have asked her to come to the stage, and there she is. And let's see, Leah was not here a few minutes ago. We'll see if she, is that her? Leah, there she is. Okay, great.
All right, let's get you guys set up.
And I will hide our other presenters here.
I think we have another team member here too. I see Becky is here. I don't know if we didn't ask her before.
Do you want Becky? Okay, I'll
but
send her
you
an
might-
invite. She
You
doesn't
might
have
invite
to
her if she would like to join us. She can. Otherwise, Leah and I are representing today.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, well, until Becky arrives, we can obviously get rolling. The first thing I want to do is, I think this is very much about discussing your work. So I believe you have the capability to share your screen if you have something you want to display to showcase today.
Me.
Hi, Becky.
All right, should be coming up.
Yep.
All right, so we are Team Rice, and I always like to qualify a little bit about what Rise is. Specifically, we chose this team because we're working with Articulate Rise. So that's a big part of what our team is here to do. The next thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about who we are. So I'll take a second to introduce myself and then I'll let Leah introduce herself. So, just a little bit about me. I have been in learning and development for, be aging myself here, but 30 plus years. And this is my first experience with the cohort. This is my first session. I had never written or really used xAPI before joining the cohort. Currently, I work at a university and I'm also a full-time PhD student. So, part of the research that I want to do in the coming years, and I just started this year for my PhD program, I want to do a lot of research on learning and development, designing e-learning online courses, maybe even integrate AR and VR technologies and how we can utilize xAPI to capture better learner data. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in my experience. Leah, do you want to pop on and introduce yourself and talk about your role here? And I don't know if she's still there.
So Leah was having some audio issues.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
So if Becky wants to jump in, perhaps.
Sure.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for inviting me up to the stage. I think this might be my 6th or 7th cohort. I've been involved with the cohort for quite a long time, and I've been working with xAPI since probably the beginning, but I have never built a RISE course. So this was one of the exciting things about the xAPI cohort is that you can have these teams with people with really deep knowledge in one area and someone else with really deep knowledge in another area, and together you can come together to build something that either one of you would not be able to build on your own. And so that's why I was really excited about this cohort's project. It was really exciting to work with Rise, and just had a really fun time working with all the folks on this team.
Yeah, it's been a really great team. So, also just to give a little overview of what our team consists of, in total, I think according to our Slack channel, we have, I think, 57 members. About 18 kind of started off as active members and have participated in some way or form. But I think really when it comes down to our core team, we're probably about maybe 8 or 9 strong who attend most meetings and have produced most of the work for our team. So I'll just go very briefly into what our team is consisted of. Probably about half of us are instructional designers. The other half are what I call maybe more the technical side and have some experience with writing xAPI statements. I think Becky has been such a strength for our group because she has that long-term experience with the cohort, even helped developing the standards for xAPI. So we've leaned on her a lot for those of us that are newbies to xAPI, and we appreciate her leadership and guidance with really getting us through getting the cohort started, because I feel like we started so strong at the beginning of, way back many weeks ago. I look back at how much we've accomplished in the last, 11 weeks, and it's pretty incredible. So we also have some people that have supported us with project management, scribing for our meetings, being our representative when we've been asked to come on stage to represent our team. And then we have a lot of people that just participated by giving us data and jumping in, lurking and giving us some feedback and suggestions. So it's been really great. So I wanted to introduce our project and what it's about. Obviously, you know that we chose to feature Rise as our course authoring tool. Rise, if you're not familiar with Articulate Rise, it's a little different from some of the other Articulate suite of products. And it does have the ability to natively publish with xAPI. So that's one of the reasons we chose this. Another thing is we wanted to figure out a way that we could I like what the last team said, like democratizing xAPI and making it more accessible and available to users. So I think we have these interconnected goals within our team. And one of those was not just to create a course in Rise and see what natively it can do with the xAPI statements, because it does have some pretty good native capability. But a secondary part of our project was to create a wrapper which could be, I guess, marketed publicly, or maybe it's something that could serve as maybe an add-in for Rise course developers that would encompass the more customized kind of statement. So we'll get into the details of that just a little bit later. But really, yeah, this was just kind of to make some suggestions on how we could build on what capabilities Rise already has from its product. So I think
Renee, can you hear me?
we have Leah on now? Is that right?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know that I got my audio situation fixed. So feel free
awesome.
to call on me as needed.
Yes, of course, of course. In fact, this is probably a good time for you to maybe join in. Is there anything that you want to touch on as well? Maybe introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your role, what you've done and your experience before we get too much further.
Yeah, sure. I can. Yeah, I apologize for my technical difficulties. Everything was working fine, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So, so I'm an instructional designer. Coming into the project, I had a good amount of experience using Rise, and I would say a moderate amount of experience with xAPI, but was very interested in sort of expanding the existing capabilities. As Renee was just saying, a big focus of our project was really on sort of what you can currently do with Rise is a very small amount of options, and we really wanted to see what we could do to try to expand what's already there. So
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Leah's been a huge, she's going to fill you in on some of the major contributions that our team has developed. But just to give you an overall summary of our project, we created a course in Articulate Rise, and the development of the course isn't anything special here. Really, this course was just a test course that shows, in just a minute, we'll give you a link where you can go access the course. And if you haven't already had an opportunity to do so, you'll be able to do that. But the main intent for our course was we wanted to show of all of the interactive blocks that are available in Articulate Rise, how we can natively, what data is captured natively, and then what's missing that we want to build on more to. So we'll get into the details of the more kind of the extra that we wanted to push for. But we built the course in Rise. We published the course to AWS. We'll get into a little bit more about why that was one of the elements that we chose. Again, we tried to create as many interactive block types as are available in Rise. And I think one time I counted the different kinds of specifically interactive blocks. I think there's maybe like 12, 13, so somewhere between 10 and 15 interactive elements. And then within each of those, we wanted to figure out what kinds of custom xAPI statements would we need to develop. So we worked toward that. We used Watershed as our dashboard to track our learner progress and get our xAPI data. Next here in our next slide, we've got just putting everything together. So, when you work in such a diverse group that we had from all different kinds of fields and all different levels of experience, it took us a while to get our rhythm. So once we overcame some obstacles that some of our team members had, for example, many of our members are doing this within a corporate environment where they have very strict kind of lockdown on all their browsers and things that they could access. So we had a little trouble just figuring out, hey, how are we going to collaborate when we're not all in the same environments that we can use? So we got through some of those things, and we're going to share probably a little more detail on that next week in the party. So we'll have a lot more detail to share with you on that. Next, Leah, do you want to touch on our process and methodologies on how we collaborated and worked as a team?
Yeah, for sure. So more to come on the sort of challenges of dealing with corporate firewalls, et cetera. I claim partial responsibility for that as one of the people that is working in a corporate environment. So as far as our process and methodology, we established weekly team meetings via Zoom. We, sort of, some meetings were kind of catch up on what work has been done in the past week. Other meetings we used to sort of more actively generate the sort of wish list of xAPI statements, which we'll get to in a minute. We used Google Drive for a lot of our collaboration and project management. We also used Slack, and I will just mention that both of those tools are tools that were challenging for some of us to use because of the aforementioned firewall issue. And we did a lot of stuff asynchronously. So, I think similar to what the other group mentioned, our very limited time together on Zoom was mostly used to kind of catch everybody up on what's been going on and try to sort of come away with like a task list of things to do. So we did a lot of our actual development stuff offline.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we figured out how we could work together as a team, we started getting to work. I already had a lot of experience working with Rise, so I volunteered to put together a really quick course. And by the way, this is a link if you want to grab your phone. You can also access this in our Slack channel. We have some of these pinned, some of these links that you'll see that we present here today are pinned that you can access. But one of the things we love about Rise from the course authoring perspective, from an instructional design perspective, is that Rise courses are fully responsive. So you can scan this from your phone. You will have to enter your email to access the course. Of course, that's one of the ways we capture user information for the actor for our statements. But if you haven't had a chance already, feel free to go in and take our course. We're not super worried about capturing accurate learner data, because this really is just a test for us to see how we could connect the dots and see what kind of information we're getting. So don't worry if you're just kind of flubbing through the course. The course consists of, like I said, a lot of interactive elements. So if you don't want to jump in the course right now, I can show you just on the screen. You can see a few elements that we decided to incorporate. For example, there are some accordion blocks, there are checklists, there are labeled graphics, there are scenarios. So natively from Rise, the first thing that was important to me to see, because I'd never been able to view what kind of xAPI data comes natively. So once we connected our course to Watershed and got some data, we could see the information that we got was pretty simple, not terribly above what you would get from just publishing from a SCORM course. So you see learner completions, you see when someone has accessed and maybe attempted some of the things. So we wanted to take that information and figure out, where is the native xAPI data that comes from a Rise published course? Where's it lacking? Where are the weak parts? So from there, I'm going to let Leah cover a little bit more about these custom statements that we realized that we wanted to build on to capture more learner data.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So as a team, we did this both kind of synchronously and asynchronously. So some folks, we created a spreadsheet, and some folks just kind of went in there and added their wish list items to the spreadsheet. We also did do some brainstorming during some of our Zoom meetings, as far as just, sort of making sure that we all had an understanding of what the current state was, as far as what was already possible in Rise, and then what do we wish would be possible, with an added sort of business case or explanation of, like, why would it be useful, or why would it be important, or in what situation would it be important to capture that particular piece of data. So a lot of things like, sort of when a learner interacts with a specific block of content, with the exception of like the knowledge check type, there's not a ton that gets captured current state within the course, within each individual content block. So one thing that was kind of a recurring theme was, like, if there's an audio, we want to know, how is the learner interacting with that audio? Are they skipping ahead? Are they speeding up? Are they repeating it? Are they skipping it altogether? All of those kinds of things. We broke them up into categories, and I know this is a little bit small, but we'll link to our actual spreadsheet so you can see more detail too. But we tried to kind of group things according to, like, the type or the topic as well. So there were a lot of items around quizzing. What is currently captured is very simple, as far as basically just, did the learner pass the quiz or not? And we wanted to get more information about which answers did they choose, how long did it take them to complete it, all kinds of things that are not currently possible. So we developed this sort of wish list of things that we wanted to be able to capture. And as we'll kind of get into more later, it's still sort of a work in progress about actually capturing some of that data according to the JavaScript wrapper that Becky is working on, which I think was mentioned earlier when I had no audio. So
yeah, so you can see that this is quite a comprehensive wish list, right? And so to go in and individually create these custom xAPI statements and test and see if they work, that's a pretty challenging task and not something that we thought we'd really be able to finish within the span of this 12-week cohort. So it's not necessarily that our project is incomplete. We just need to keep going. So we need more time. And I think that's the beauty of having a cohort like this, where we had these various tracks. So part of our project, for a lot of our users, is very much complete. For many of us, it was the first time we were able to figure out how to connect xAPI statements to even draft them within a published course, how to connect that to an LRS. What is an LRS? I mean, that's kind of where a lot of us were. So just to sort of wrap things up, and then I want to leave, a minute or two for any questions that anyone has. Again, the tools that we used: Articulate, Rise. And one of the reasons we chose Rise, again, of course, it's responsive course design. But the difference between the Rise courses from, say, like a Captivate or Storyline is that the content blocks are what they are. And then, yes, you can customize those elements. But the beauty of this is that our end goal is to create this wrapper that we could use, again, like as a plugin or add-in for the course, that would cover all of those wish list kind of statements, so that we can really dive in much deeper to capture that learner data, so that we can enhance learning and create better learning experiences. So you can see we've completed our, I'm going to jump over to the next slide here. These are some of our milestones along the way. So we developed our course, published it on AWS. That was 100% complete. We were able to test those native xAPI data elements that went to Watershed. Again, we were able to analyze that information and content from Watershed. And then from there, we've started developing this wish list. We're still in the process of writing those JavaScript statements. And then eventually we want to have this kind of marketable product. We have a couple geniuses that are in our group that want to take that and really make it what could be a marketable project for us. So that's kind of what we completed. Of course, we invite you to tune in next week so that we can fill in a little more details. But until then, if you have any questions for Leah or Becky or myself, let us know. We'll answer any questions you have.
That was great, Renee. I appreciate you and your team going to that level of detail.
You're so welcome. Thanks for this for me has just been such a rewarding experience to have accomplished, like I said, as much as we have in a short period of time with people from, I think Becky put it in the chat earlier, people in 8 different time zones.
Yeah.
And just trying to collaborate and work together, being such a diverse community with access to so many different kinds of things. It really was a fantastic experience for all of us.
So I'm watching the chat just to see if any questions pop up. I'm sure you can see it as well. But
yes.
In the meantime, I'm curious to ask this of you and the rest of the group too, because again, I always say, we definitely want people to join the cohort. We want them to find and join a team or start a team. What advice might you have for people? Because like I've heard, like Becky said, this is like the 7th time she's been in the cohort. People return. I think that's awesome. But what's it take to kind of like really get your hands dirty and not just be lurking, but to join a group? What advice might you guys offer?
I think for me, I can take this and then I'll turn it over to Becky and then Leah. For me, being my first time, I just sort of dove in. I thought that at first it would be more comfortable to lurk, but then I realized if I really want to access the information that I want to get and get the most out of it, I really needed to be involved. And I think a few other people on our team felt the same way. And they were like, well, maybe I can't develop a course or write a statement, but I can participate in other ways and come to the meetings and give suggestions and feedback. So I think my advice would just be dive right in. It's okay to lurk too, because I'm lurking in a few other groups. Just to see what they're doing and give some feedback too. But yeah, that's my advice. Dive in. Becky, what do you have?
I think my biggest message is to you have something a team needs. Like hands down, you have something a team needs. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to spell xAPI, but you have something a team needs. I am the world's worst project manager, and if you're a project manager, then I need you. So, if you want to know something about what a team is working on, then I promise you have something that team needs.
Yeah, that's great advice. What about you, Leah?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. And I think maybe just to kind of piggyback on what Becky said, I think I kind of came into the project thinking that I was going to be like the least experienced person or the least knowledgeable person. And so I guess I would say don't sell yourself short in terms of like what you know or what you can contribute. And that doesn't necessarily have to be specifically about xAPI. So like Becky said, everybody has skills. And one of the best skills that people have is the ability to ask questions and sort of seek understanding. So one thing that I really appreciated among our group members was, because of the range of sort of experience and familiarity with the topic, we had an opportunity to really kind of dig in and define things and explain things in a way that I think by the end really started to sort of gel and make sense for folks. And I found that to be extremely valuable. So if your role is to come in as, sort of a newbie and ask questions and seek understanding, that's a very valuable role. And we want you on the team. So if that's where you're at, take ownership of that, I would say.
Yeah, 100% agree. I see a comment from another one of our team members, Michelle, saying it's okay to be a beginner. Sometimes if you're more advanced, you forget what it was like to be a beginner. So it helps to have a beginner ask the questions that you don't know that need to be asked. So it helps.
That's great advice. So I hear jump in, you've got something to offer, and ask a ton of questions, because I honestly, when you ask the right questions, it refines where you're going, what you visualize at the end too, and it presents new perspectives. So we're at the top of or at the end of our time, I should say, together. So Team Rise, thanks so much for sharing. Next week is the party. So we want to make sure that everybody has registered for that opportunity. And we'll definitely see you all next week for 6 fabulous deep dives into these various projects. So thanks again, everybody.
We're so excited. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for being here. And that is it. I'm going to close out the session, and we'll see you all next week.
See y'all next week.